Hello, hello, and welcome to CloudCast. I'm your host, Snacks, joined by my delightful co host, Jaden, here, where we talk about our post Ragnarok adventures. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Snacks, a very tiny, very small creator with a focus on cloudheim and mainly its combat, more so on creating fun and unique ways to play. I like long walks on the beach and coffee at midnight. Jaden, first off, how are you this fine day?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good, good. And second, tell us a little bit about you.
So I am Jaden. I also host Pillow Fort Games over on Twitch. I also like long walks on the beach and midnight coffees, uh,
I love it.
and thunderstorms. I think I'm gonna add that one in to be different.
Okay, thunderstorms. Thunderstorms. They're calming at times.
They are.
Since this is our first episode, things may be a little rough, so I apologize for that in advance. However, the aim is to improve. With all that said, let's dive in. Uh, so let's start off with your first impression of Cloudheim and how you discovered it.
So I discovered it because I think I saw a brief ad on TikTok during one of my like 3 a.m. doom scrolling sessions. I have always loved turtles. And I actually had a running bit with a couple of my friends with a roleplay character that I had, that my artificer had a turtle that would eventually grow and become something that you could just like live off of. And so there's always a running anytime any of us find a game where you have something that's like you're living on the back of an animal, especially a turtle, we kind of like share it with each other.
Okay.
So I had shared it, and then uh I was sitting at my computer and I was looking for a game to play, and I was like, "Wait, I remember hearing that the demo was out." And so I loaded the demo out. And so I loaded the demo out, and I played it. It was a really fun demo, and I got to the point in the original version of the demo, the tutorial. They have you go through, you play through the combat, you come back, you do the base building stuff, and then like you go up to the terrace and you meet the Odin shell that you're playing on in Cloudheim. And you get this cool cutscene, and it's like, Runari, go out and you find the gods and wake them up. And I'm like, okay, that was a fun demo. And then it just kept playing, and I was like,
Right?
oh, it's not done. Oh, um, while I was streaming it, the funny thing is that actually one of the devs had popped in, and it was Strings, and stopped in and said like, hey, thanks for playing the game, blah 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 this. And then another community member had come in, and we were just kind of talking like shop on builds, and what, because at that point I think he had 60 hours in the demo, and I was just starting to play, and he's like, yeah, check out these abilities, try this. And I was like, kind of enjoying the engagement and stuff like that. So just because of that, I ended up joining the Discord. And for me, like, what kept me going on it was that like the combat was relatively smooth. It was refreshing because I feel like a lot of combat in a, like, ever since Dark Souls came out, a lot of games have pushed forth a combat that's like slow and methodical, and watch for your parry moments, and watch for this.
And this game's just
But
chaos.
well, so the system that I joined in was before they overhauled their kinetic system, and so the joke that was made was you need to think it less like a combo and more like, how do I make a human pinball machine?
Okay.
And I think just the absolute chaos of throwing everything everywhere uh gave me a little bit of old Ratchet and Clank vibes of just like, this game does not take itself seriously and it's fun. Um and since then they have only made the combat feel, for the most part, smoother. And that for me was a big catch for it. I love the art style, and it was just this like, I think it was ultimately the smooth combat and the fact that it did not take itself seriously.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I actually discovered the game New Year's Eve, of all times. I was just trouncing around Steam looking for something to play. I had been in a little bit of a gaming rut, you could say, and just really wanted to find something that I could sink some time into until maybe some updates for some other games came out and or whatever. And I just I played the demo for about 2 hours, and I was like, I don't need to play the demo anymore. I've seen enough of what I need to see. I'm going to purchase the game. And I just ripped, immediately ripped the band aid off, grabbed the supporter edition. I thought the game was beautiful. I thought the combat was incredible. I never imagined a game that had this like cozy vibe to it, this like sort of crafting and building up a home base kind of situation to have the combat that it does. I think it's extremely fluid and it's so responsive, which is something I absolutely love. And then I fell in love with the game. Fell in love with the game and I was like, well, we'll slide over on the Discord, see what's going on over there, and next thing you know, I'm putting out videos and stuff. I mean, it's been quite the crazy month for me. You could say.
Yeah.
Is there
I
Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say is you've kind of explained what you love about it and whatnot. As someone with an exorbitant amount of hours, you're extremely knowledgeable of the game. What keeps bringing you back to the game? Like what's that does it have that it factor? You know, what is it that brings you back all the time?
I a good part of it I think is the community. Um
I can agree.
but I also think that the game is designed in a way to sort of just enjoy it. Like it's game that wants you to just sort of play it. And I know they just overhauled their mastery system, but their mastery system originally was you gained levels in your classes by mastering the weapons, and I think you
Mhm.
still get more skill points faster that way. Uh, but it was the fact that it sort of encouraged you to not just stagnate with one build, right? Like once I found the weapons that I liked, I like still had to play with different weapons, and as I was doing that, I found other builds that I really enjoyed that I, in a normal RPG sense, might have never tried. Um, and I was going through the other day, and I was like playing back some of my builds, and like you can almost see the stages of my own like what the builds looked like for what I had fun at the time. And
Mhm.
I think it just has a lot of creativity with it that goes through. Um, but I think it really is the combat being smooth to a point where you can have a conversation with it. And then I think the community is super helpful with it. Joining the Discord, popping in with a couple of the calls, and people. I've been in calls where like five of us are running our own game, but we're still like shop talking on builds and things like that, and testing things out. And I think the big thing for me is that there is no mass source that I can find the answers for. And so
That is true. That is true.
because
A lot of things are still
it's
kind of
still in
hidden.
its like fledgling state, so like no one's written the articles on wikis, and no one's put put forth the effort. And we're just starting to see the people that are crunching the numbers and writing down the, hey, here's how you can grind everything out. And I think for me, the discovery of the great unknown in the game was a big part of it.
Okay. I could definitely say that I kind of fall in the same category. I loved there really not being a guide for everything, you know? And that's so commonplace in today's gaming world is there's just you can just do a Google search, a week after a game comes out and everything you ever wanted to know is there. With this game, that is most definitely not the case. If I'm sure you can find all the information that you're probably chasing, but you're gonna have to dig a little bit deeper, I feel like.
Were you here? Because I'm trying to remember some of the timelines. I think they fixed it before the early access release. The first quest on Arcadia, where you have to like basically go on the scavenger hunt and it starts you off with you have to find the beached wooden whale.
I mean, I I don't know personally. I know that I spent like a good maybe 30 minutes looking for the beached whale, but that's only because I was going to the wrong beaches. I ran around to every beach except for the one that I was supposed to go to, and then when I finally found, like, I knew I was at the right beach when I was like, this has got to be the white tree they're talking about, right? And because I couldn't
Right.
find any other white tree on Arcadia, and so I was looking around for a beach, and I knew beached whale. Uh, for something just clicked in my brain, and I was like, obviously, I'm not looking for an actual whale. I'm looking for a
Right.
boat, right? Um, and I knew that when I found the tree, I was in the right area. I found the boat shortly after that. Finding the statue took me a little bit longer because I didn't know what I was really looking for until I looked off in the distance and I was like, "Oh, it's just the giant owl statue over there." And the rest was super easy to follow after that.
So back in the day, and I think this is part of what lent me to helping become a community helper or a helpful Runari on the Discord. Um, it was the tree was the Dustlanger bulb trees. So it didn't initially look like a lone white tree. It looked like
Oh.
a budding flower. So a lot of people were struggling with that specific quest and like finding everything. And it was me and another helpful Runari. I think sat down one day and wrote like a sort of walkthrough guide. But I think that's also part of why I joined the Discord was because there was that moment where I really realized that I was going to get to help discover this game. Because I like Googled, I was like, how do I, what step am I missing on this quest? Or, like you would for a walkthrough.
Sure.
And all it was, come play cloudheim, demos out now, and I
Yeah,
was just like,
yeah.
oh, I have to be the one to do this.
Yep.
And I there's just a part of it in on the Discord I refer to myself as a field researcher because I like games that I can like just go out and explore. Like me personally, I love the dungeon grinding and things like that. I love that it is a controlled open world so that I don't get immediate paralysis in where do I go, which one do I explore first, right? Like they kind of guide you in just enough of a way that it makes the exploration of the island a little bit fun.
Yeah.
I also really appreciate that there are very few spaces that you can't get to without with the right build and
Right.
sense
I
of
loved that.
willpower.
I loved being able to just go, wait, can I go here? And yeah, you sure can. I definitely didn't expect there to be, like, I knew the verticality was important to the game, but I didn't realize that they really were like, hey, if you can go here, you're good.
Yeah, it took me I think like 6 playthroughs to find out how the actual way I was supposed to climb Wisdom Peak was. Because
Okay, yeah.
so many other times I would do the like Skyrim mountain hopping where I would the old PS2 where you would jump and get just enough of a you can if your pinky toe can touch this
You could
part of
just
it
get
it
the lip
considers
and
it
you're good.
ground and it resets your
I
jump
did the same thing, dude. I did the same thing climbing that mountain. I was like, "Let me I'll just go up the side, I guess."
I there was the good while where everyone was posting their pictures of the I think if they ever do an achievement system that needs to be like a rite of passage achievement is standing on top of the owl's head and taking a moment and like really soaking in Arcadia as an island.
I actually don't think I've climbed on top of the owl's head. I think I
Oh.
just kind of stopped after I got to the base of it.
Next chance you get, you should
Oh,
get
I
up there
will.
and give it a try.
Oh, I will. That's on the list now. With all that, they just dropped Vault of the Gods, which amazing update, let me just say. How do you feel about it?
I I won't be shy about it, right? Because they dropped Vault of the Gods and Mercstorm as an island came out with that.
Right.
And I think Mercstorm, there was a little bit more that it left a little bit to be desired. As someone who likes exploring the islands and stuff like that, it took me, I think, granted, I didn't know as much about the game as I do now, but it did take me, I think, 40 something hours to get through all of Arcadia, Dustlanger, Greenvor, and Frostvaldir. And I was expecting, at least a good maybe 2 or 3 hour adventure into Mercstorm. And when I was done in like an hour, I was like, oh, I love the concept of it. I love having to almost immediately start thinking on your feet because of the lightning in Mercstorm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh like the fact that like you get this one moment of quiet where the Sylph statue tells you what's up about Mercstorm, and like the second you walk out, the lightning bolts start coming. And I was playing on Unforgiving. I don't know if it changes the pacing of the lightning, or if it just changes like their damage and stuff, but like immediately having to start like
Oh
dodge
yeah, you
rolling
have to.
and like thinking on your feet, like I was so much in my element for that. I love that.
Yeah, you have to
um
keep moving pretty consistently on Unforgiving. I was
yeah,
also playing on Unforgiving, and you don't really have a second to stop and you know do things. You got to keep moving.
I think having a full storyline in Mercstorm where you have to constantly be like dealing with that, and then having the storyline be maybe that it helps clear up Mercstorm. Like there's still the lightning strikes, maybe like bigger areas and more intense, but at slower pacing
Well, I do know
and
that if you
things like
lower the
that.
difficulty, the pacing of the lightning does go down.
Okay. See, I had turned it down in the island, and then I don't think I ever went back on one of the lower settings, because I was trying to find all the chests. But I do love that there's very little warm up to that, which I think does add to that chaos of what the lore of Mercstorm was. It was like you have that one moment, and then once you step out there, boom, the lightning starts going, and it's like two or three start. You're like, oh, I got to move. Um,
I do think the thing is though, like it being the fifth island, it I feel like you should be prepared. You're prepared for stuff like that at this point. Like you understand how the combat works, you understand the searching, the finding of the treasure chests, etc. like that. Uh, I loved it. I loved Mercstorm. I thought it was a great little island. It's definitely smaller than a lot of the other islands, so I can understand why the content wasn't as deep. Maybe. Uh,
I think it would be interesting to see a playthrough from someone who was not here before Mercstorm, because I think they mentioned it in one of their dev blog posts that Mercstorm was supposed to be the transition island. So you would get done with Greenvor, unlock Mercstorm, and then move on to Frostvaldir.
okay.
And I think it being a smaller island caters to that, because Greenvor was also a slightly smaller island. Um, and when I was on the front lines of exploration, we hit there was a whole group of us that hit a wall for world stars. And so the pacing was really nice at first, because you need like 15 to get from Arcadia to Dustlanger. You
Mm-hmm.
need, I think it was like 35 to get to Greenvor. Um, which by the time you were done with Dustlanger, I think you only needed to grind out like 10 or so world stars. But when you got done with Greenvor, you
It was
needed 55
55.
world
Yeah.
stars, which was like a crazy jump. And like a lot of people were like, no, that like kills the momentum, because now we got to go back and like enjoy things.
I mean, even as a
um
newer player, who wasn't on those front lines at the time, going from Greenvor to Frostvaldir, I mean, even for me, I still had to grind out like a good 15 world stars, I feel like, prior to getting there.
yeah. And so I think the proper rotation is that the Mercstorm, you would go from Greenver to Mercstorm. And I what I like about that, I think, is it then throws you into a little bit of that chaos, and then you've adapted to it, you've like accelerated your way of thinking, and then you get to move to Frostvaldir, and you get to sort of slow down a little bit. And I would love in the as they expand all of this world and they add islands and things like that. Um, I would love these little islands that like just sort of snap you back awake. Like you're hitting that rhythm, you're grinding green for it's this really peaceful place, and then you get dropped into Mercstorm and you're like, I got to start thinking. So I do love the idea of Mercstorm. I think story wise, I just wish I got to spend a little bit more time on it, or it was slightly bigger. There was a little bit more story to it. Um, but if it's only meant to be a transitional island, then I think it's fine, right? A little detour kind of thing. If you look at it as like the road trip map, right? Like you just needed
Sure.
to take a short detour over here to have that chaos episode kind of thing. Um, but as far as like the actual vault of the gods,
Yeah, I was
I'm
gonna
loving
mention
it.
that. Yeah, I
Not a fan of poison. Not a fan of poison. I don't think you and I will ever be shy about that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, I would say the poison's fine in moderation. It's only bad when you hit, three back to back to back poison dungeons and you're like, "All right. Okay, what are we doing here? Let's can we have some variation, game? Come on."
I and there was that test for the poison dungeon in Sportswell Sculpture over on Mage's Respite in Arcadia.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people had complained that like just getting poisoned all of the time sucked. And I do think going back and playing some of the poison dungeons and paying attention to it, that the Vault of the Gods, I think they did fix the poison mechanic. It's just there's so much of it in the vault that it feels like you're just constantly getting poisoned because they changed it to you walking through puddles instead of it used to just be in the air. So you would just gain stacks by standing around unless you went to one of the cleansing orbs. Um but
I believe it's
I think
still
I had
like
one more
that.
poison dungeon last night that I was playing, and I sat there for a minute because I was also talking to some people on Twitch, and I came back and I was like, oh, I've just been standing in this dungeon with no enemies around and nothing, and I've not been poisoned. So I
That's
do.
odd. I normally get poisoned if I'm just standing around. There's nothing going
I
on, what have you.
I'll have to double check it. I I I think that would be the biggest thing that would fix it is not constantly being poisoned. Um, and then I've also mentioned this in our conversations, like a more prominent indicator with the chaos of everything that's going on in the game is sometimes there's so much going on that you don't hear your little status effect. Um,
Right. I will
I
say though,
think
the poison definitely gives you that sense of urgency, similar to how the lightning does on Mercstorm. That you really need to be continually moving. You need to find those cleansing stations, and it makes combat, I feel like, a lot more intense in otherwise less intense scenarios where you're not being threatened by something that's not an enemy, right?
I I agree, and I think I will enjoy the poison as a challenge a little bit more when what is it, Brog and Gra decide to play nice in the game
Right.
and
Those
not
guys
cheat
are.
themselves, right? Like when they want to play the game and not break the rules, I will absolutely be totally fine with poison.
I can definitely say
Um,
that I have encountered my fair share of grogs and brogs, uh, choosing not to play by the rules. Gaining that shield. There's no other enemies around. You can't really do anything about it, while also being low health because I've been poisoned for a majority of the fight. So
yep.
you just basically are bouncing around between the cleansing stations in those boss arenas, waiting for him to come out of his invulnerable state.
And it is funny if you ever like watch it though. Like he really just doesn't want to play. Like he puts up the shield and then doesn't chase you around,
He'll
doesn't
just stand
attack
there.
you. He just stands there, and I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm getting poisoned. Like I'm sure you're living it up right now, but it's like I feel like it's like trying to tell a husky to come out of the snow. Like, come
Mm-hmm.
on, dude. Like I've got stuff to do.
I will say though, however, aside from the poison, all the other vaults, I mean, even the vault tiles themselves are phenomenal, and I'm loving every bit of it. But every
I'm
vault, it
100% here
feels
for
great.
the level design.
Yeah, it feels wonderful. I absolutely love having a repeatable dungeon that you can. mix up whenever you see fit, right? You get tired of running one tile set, you switch it up, you can run another tile set. I do love the loot from those dungeons as well. I think they did a great job in that regard where you're able to find just about anything in those dungeons, especially all the new trinkets, all the new weapons, etc.
Yeah. I can't wait to figure to eventually find the frost or the frostfall dungeon, which was a
I
fun dungeon to
I
run.
still have not found a single frostfall egg.
Uh, I, I'm wondering if there is, because it's come up in the past where like the community would be like, yeah, this just doesn't exist, and then like you read between the lines in the way that the devs talk, and you're like, I think it's in
So
there.
I thought it didn't exist, but there has been confirmation so far from the community that the eggs have been acquired. They just have a lower drop rate than the other eggs do.
I wonder if like in, because this was sort of the compromise that I think the devs put in, because we had the seasonal event, and then it was over, and there was a lot of people that were saying that they felt like it wasn't sort of fair that the seasonal content gets locked, which I
I
come from
mean,
I come from an old age of gamers where
let's be
seasonal
real.
content was seasonal content, and a lot of those games never re-released their old seasonal stuff. It
Yeah,
was just, you were here for Christmas in 2016, you got the special hat. um
cough RuneScape,
but I
cough.
do but I do appreciate, like, there are other games that I play now that when they do their seasonal content, they reopen all of the other stuff.
Yeah, see,
Um
I don't quite fall into that category of like, oh, I missed the season, I should still be able to play it. Like, I mean, it's there, it's seasonal for a season, and that makes sense. I'm glad that we have access to it. Do not get me wrong. I think it's
yeah.
phenomenal that they're giving everyone the chance to be able to still play it even out of season. That said, I don't see it being a situation where it's a one and done, right? I mean, the Christmas stuff, it'll be here on Christmas, and that's what gives those seasonal dungeons their flair, you know? I imagine a spring dungeon or something in the realm of Easter or what have you would be also kind of cool for that time period. Same with like Halloween and so on and so forth. Those seasons give you a reason to come back to the game during those times where you otherwise probably wouldn't, right?
I think the only case that I could see in this specific instance this year was that the Frostfall DLC, I believe, was released like on the 14th or 15th of December. So it was like right before the big holiday season. And there's like a lot of people that might be
Right,
traveling and
right.
stuff like that. And then it was the first or second week of January, I think it ended up being pulled. So it was a very narrow window from a gamer perspective, from a repeatable dungeon perspective. I
What would you
definitely
like to
understand that.
see in terms of that kind of content? Would you like it to be a month long situation, or are you looking for something longer than that?
I mean, because it really kind of was a month long. It was just over the section of month splits that because I think it was about 4 weeks that it was open before it got pulled. I'd have to go back and check notes, but I do think that a seasonal thing, starting like second week of December and running to this, like a 6 week campaign, might open up a little bit, just because those holiday times,
They can be dicey.
they can be dicey. People are working extra hours, or they're spending time with their family. Like, I myself wasn't on cloudheim for like a whole week because I had family in town.
Right.
um and then I got to just watch the Discord as one of the outages, I think the Epic game servers
Mm-hmm.
dropped or something like that, and so like the whole game was out. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. Anyways, watching a movie with my dad, like
Yeah, I mean I
um
came in late to the seasonal event. Like I said, I picked up the game New Year's Eve and was pretty much just had to kind of speed run that seasonal content. Didn't really have a ton of time to gather up all the little jingle bells and then get the boosts, you know. I did. I would say I probably did like 5 or 6 of the boosted runs of the dungeon to try and hammer out as much as I could of it, chase those cool weapons and whatnot. Uh, and that's pretty much it.
Um, but yeah, but I do appreciate that the devs came up and did a like they found a compromise, right? Like it's
Right?
not that the
Yeah.
seasonal content is always open. There is a chance you can reopen it, and maybe in the future there's like a specific material or a specific combination of the berries that you can do that produce specific eggs. I think that would be maybe kind of a cool.
I think they laid incredible groundwork with Vault of the Gods for accessing certain pieces of content, out of season or in general, right? I think they did wonderful job with that. But looking forward from Vault of the Gods, is there anything upcoming that you feel you want to talk about? Is what in terms of upcoming updates? Is there anything you're really looking forward to?
So as far as updates, I would say more stuff that I know is on their roadmap and ideas. But a quick pit stop I think would be I would love to see the Vault of the Gods grow in a way that maybe you can craft a totem that controls that poison versus lightning and changes the like you can almost like an homage to the roguelikes where like you can pick stuff that make the
Oh, like
dungeon
pick
harder but
modifiers?
offer better loot or things like that.
Okay.
um I think that would be something that would be really interesting. And just looking from a symmetry standpoint, we have the egg on the one side of the arch, and I think the totem could go on the other side of the arch, right?
So are you
um
thinking like lootable items that you would find that put a modifier on the dungeon itself? Or are you talking about a sort of static item similar to like how we have the statues where you can change things at will?
I would say similar to like the eggs, right? Like you can either
So
either
craft a
get it from like a
consumable
trading,
item.
yeah, crafting or like a shop that you can sort of get them out from. Um I think that would be a really neat thing, and then you drop it in and it's like, okay, these enemies have like 40% attack speed or extra health or like you know
Right.
um stuff that makes it harder but increases the chances for rarer loot. And I think it would be interesting if like maybe world eggs could drop in those dungeons, which could lead to that. If you're willing to risk it, you get a little bit of a higher chance to like maybe do a frostfall run or something like that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, I see what you're saying here. Okay.
Um, Other than that, I think the big thing that is a massive talk in the community right now, something that you and I have discussed like at length. I know that it's like one of the whole reasons we wanted to start doing this. The enchantment system.
Oh, the enchantment talk. Oh, brother. Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one for sure.
And I don't know, I don't remember where it is on their roadmap.
It's actually
Um,
at the bottom. I don't think it has any sort of detailed release window or anything of that nature. I just know it's on the roadmap.
and I do think that like it being far down, and I don't know if they're following the roadmap specifically, or if it's just like, hey, here's stuff that we know we want to come out with and things like that. um that's one of those things that I think that I think, to be honest, I think the devs are kind of like watching what the community discusses when it comes to terms of enchantments, um to figure out what might be the best for the community, if that makes sense. Like they've done a lot. There's a lot of times that they've responded to community feedback. That's why we have the house over on the side, was the when they
Yeah, I
did the
heard
beta
about that.
testing. Yeah, so I wasn't here for the beta testing, so I only know it through legend. But from what I understand, is they did the beta testing, and a lot of people were upset that uh, originally the way you upgraded the house was you upgraded it. So you would start with like the Bifrost chest, and then you would sell some stuff, and you would upgrade it, and then you got your smelter station, and then you would upgrade it, and you got your cleansing pool station, and you upgraded it, and you
Right.
upgraded it as you went, and you got more stuff, more stations and things like that. But people wanted to be able to like move their stations around and like customize their plot and stuff like that, and so they kind of moved the shop over off to the side because they weren't sure. From what I understand, I don't speak for the devs. I'm just sort of interpreting what I've seen from conversation. I don't think they fully wanted to get rid of the shop, but weren't sure what they wanted to do with it.
Yeah, that's kind
But
of what I've heard, is that it's the house is just kind of in a limbo state at the moment until they figure out what exactly they want to do with it. I personally love the house. I think it's very uniquely designed. I love being able to, decorate it up and stuff, even if it's still, remains a side piece to the overall building aspect. I love it. I think it's phenomenal. As someone, since you can't actually build your own house yet, uh, I love it. I love it. I want to. I wish we could add more to it. Put more things inside it. Have more storage shelves, in particular, to put things on shelves.
um,
But
I
that's
think I think one of but I think that is a good example. Same thing with we have the extension Bifrost chest now too, right? Was a big note was that a lot of people didn't like using the house as a shop because you had to run all the way over to your chest, grab all of your stuff, and then run all the way back to your shop. Um, and so they were like, look, we can't move the Bifrost chest just yet because I personally just as Jaden, I have the theory that it is one part spaghetti code and one part load bearing code.
yeah,
um,
probably.
I am not a coder or a developer, but I have heard that load bearing Goku code is a thing. Um, that there was a game that put in a joke Goku and couldn't take it out because it somehow
Held
became a
everything
part of
together.
important code. Yeah.
Yeah.
But their compromise was, again, hey, what if we can just give you secondary chests right now? And so, when you look at that, when you look at the house, when you look at them putting in a way to come back to Frostfall, like they do listen to a lot of the community.
Oh,
And I think
absolutely.
that's why they're holding off on the enchantments right now, is I think they're trying to see what the discussion for enchantments is, to see what would work the best for the community.
Yeah.
Of all of that chatter that I've seen, I think you and I have come up with something
Yeah,
that
I
I think
mean,
is worth the conversation.
we've definitely talked at length about this. Me personally, I've talked about it a ton to a good handful of people. I think it has the grounds for being something amazing, but I also think it's extremely fragile to where it could be not fun. I think that's the words I'm going to use here. It could be very not fun if it goes in a specific way. However, I wholeheartedly believe that the devs have a great understanding of what the community wants, and they will do right by all of us in that regard. I think I think a lot of the weapons should have some limitations, although not limiting to a factor of, well, I'm just never going to use X, Y, or Z, right? Um, I
And
think,
I think that was a big one when we first started this conversation, that took you and I a couple of conversations to figure out where our middle ground was,
right.
because I originally came into this as uh I was sort of anti enchantment system and pro every weapon feeling more unique and having a story to it, being a lorehound that I am. Um and my concern was that if it's open enchantments where every single enchantment can just be rewrote, then there's no point in having multiple weapons. You might as well just have essentially a character weapon at that point
And then a
and
stat
load
stick.
in whatever you want to do. Um, which I think doesn't to me doesn't register as the Cloudheim vibes, because it does sort of feel a little bit like that Borderlands, where Borderlands was like, oh, we have like 8 million weapons, and it's the same like 10 weapons with different aesthetic modifiers and different fire rates and different, little different micro niches that
Sure.
could really like lend yourself to a build. um and I think that Cloudheim's real strength is that, like, there is that level of playability and customability that isn't overly paralyzing in massive, mundane, like, minutia of min maxing.
As the min maxer, I hey, give me some numbers, baby. Give me some numbers. Let me tweak them. That's all I'm saying. You know, I do agree in that every weapon should feel unique to a degree, right? I'm not saying every single weapon has to feel drastically different than the rest, but your legendaries and your mythics and possibly even the epic rarity weapons should have a degree of uniqueness to them, to where a switch from a hammer and shield that is green or blue, one of the starting ones, to a hammer and shield that is legendary should feel drastically different. You should have some uniqueness to those weapons that make them feel legendary, right? If you
Right,
look at other games that have that criteria or what have you, you look at something like, I'll use Destiny 2 for example, since I played the ever loving crap out of that game. You have your regular guns, and then you have your exotic weapons that have a whole different aspect to them that make them feel really unique. And I'm not
right,
saying you got to go 1-to-1 with that. I'm just saying that the uniqueness for some of those weapons, in agreement with you here, could be expanded upon, and then you follow that up with the ability to modify the bottom four enchantments, or the bottom five enchantments. You have, 1 to 3, or 2 to 3, specifically tied to that weapon, excluding the base things that come on that weapon, like daggers always having a bleed trait, right? And then your metal of that weapon being luminite or orichalcum, what have you, those always being static, but then having, you know, two, 1, 2, 3, maybe unique traits that are always tied to that weapon that benefit that weapon specifically, or a specific. I I wouldn't go as far to say as a specific build in that regard, but I would say, if you have a weapon that's always going to come with the rising slash trait, right? Like maybe have that unique weapon always come with the rising slash modifier to further emphasize, hey, you've chosen this weapon because X, Y, or Z reason, but you're getting Rising Slash, and we're gonna make sure that if you're picking Rising, or you're taking this weapon for the Rising Slash, you're always getting that Rising Slash upgrade, regardless of whatever else you've got going on in your kit, right? I think that it would be a phenomenal idea, and then give us the ability to, add or subtract, other things. Like if there's no reason I should have a weapon that has a specific skill, doesn't have the ability to modify that skill, but instead gives me 9 barrel traits. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that's a little too common.
And I agree with that, and I know the big one that, like, I use as a point of reference for the way that I try to, like, explain what I think the system could work as, right, is, like, I do also think overhauling some of the abilities on the weapons themselves, even like
Captain's Bulwark.
Captain's Bulwark should 100% have the boomerang shield ability.
I second
But
this.
the big one that I use, just as an example of like where my disappointment in weapons sort of comes from, um, is Dawnbinder. Right? It's a rune blade sword. It looks super cool. It actually looks like something that might come out of like Darksiders or something like that. It's like this epic looking sword. I think it's like a legendary or mythic quality by the time you're done mastering it, right? And then it's like Rising Slash is its ability. And you're like, cool. Um but like Dawnbinder sounds like this thing that's like, adventurers have gone on this epic quest to find Dawnbinder because it's like the thing that like quells the sun or something like that, right? Like it holds the power of the sun in it. Like it
Sure.
not doing it not having, a cool ability and things like that. And I do like I personally I like that certain abilities are weapon exclusive. Like you can't just cast them on their own. Um and I could see maybe like the mythic quality weapons like having more of those and having like these sort of lore abilities that you only get that ability from that weapon kind of thing. Because I could see that as loaning itself to that because I get a good vibe of like the game kind of wants you to kit bash and sort of mix match and test things out, right? Like I love the playground feel of it. Of you like we've done, I know you do your build talks and stuff like that. And like we've messed around with some of them where I'm like, I really enjoy this play style. Let me give it a try, right? And like we look at it and things like that.
Sure.
But I have come around and I do agree that like a little bit of enchantments to be able to like you find the weapon that you like, like I have the ice storm that has does a whole bunch of good stats and loans into my build of being a storm mage, right? But then it enhances both shocking orbs and crash, which are two abilities that I can't quite fit in my kit with what else I have going on.
Yeah, yeah.
um so I would love the ability to be able to like maybe pull off the one that does the splitting orbs and add more damage for crash, or amp up my ice bolts, or to do something like that, or even just add in another magic stat.
Yeah, I would
um
like to really see that the stacking of, the unique traits for specific skills. If those could stack, that would be one thing. But if they don't stack, I'm not opposed to that either. I do think it should be impossible to roll double stacks on things in that regard, right? If something isn't going to benefit you more than once, you shouldn't be able to put two of it on a weapon or whatever.
I also think like a little bit of clarification too. Like if if the first modifier changes the actual animation, I'll use ice shards for example, right? I want to say you fire like 7 with a normal ice shards, and then the first time it's amped, you fire like 14, something like that, or it's 5 and 10. I don't. I'm
Yeah, I mean,
usually killing something too fast to actually pay attention to how many I fired off. But like it is like the first time it's like a half circle, and the second time you fire like a full circle, like a like a minigun style, right?
sure. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
But it would also be interesting to know if each additional stack after that, while it doesn't change the animation, is it amping the damage? Because if that's the case, I'm okay with that too. I'm cool with like one time, hey, the effect looks different and now it's amped, but it doing more damage. Like I'm okay with that. Um and I think a point of clarification of if that's what's supposed to happen, or am I with ice shards? Am I supposed to, the more times I stack it, am I supposed to get more bullets? Like, would I eventually have a whole spiral of them being fired off? Or with crash, would I have, you start with one crash and then you go to like 5 as a wall, am I eventually supposed to have 7 and 9 and, hit a wider range
Mm-hmm.
and things like that? Um,
Yeah, I do
I
think
think
the enchantments themselves probably need a bit of touch up, but I do agree. I do agree in that regard.
yeah. And I think that's personally like if we could spearhead it, I think that would be the great compromise, is like have the traits that are static to the weapon with a few weapon only abilities that like add this lore to what this weapon was in its day and age. While also being able to like modify it, and okay, I really like the Dawnbinder, I like what it does. It's gonna push me into that melee side of the rune blade, so let me add more weapon damage and attack speed and stuff. Just being able to,
Yeah, I think
even
the
even if
fine
it's just the
line
stats.
is being able to find a good middle ground where the most ideal scenario is not just slapping on as many 30% weapon damage bonuses as you can possibly get. Because don't get me wrong, I'm down with that, right? Like I love weapon damage, but there has to be a there has to be that Goldilocks zone of I want X, Y, and Z, but is weapon damage just better, right? You don't want to keep falling into that pit of am I just stacking raw stats or am I actually trying to find synergy, you know? And
Right.
I think that's going to be what they have to look for when it comes to this system. But moving on from that, you're a content creator, as am I, and I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit here. What kind of inspired you to make content, and then like what inspired you to make content for Cloudheim in particular?
So, the Pillowfort Games origin story was, there was one day I was just having like one of those weeks where it was like, the worst parts of the country song, kind of, everything hitting at once. I think I was like freshly just out of being 18, just turned an adult, and it was like just a garbage week at work. There was a whole bunch of drama going on in my friend circle, and I popped into a streamer that I have been following since, I think, as long as my account has been active, as well as being subbed, I think, 1 month minus that. Um, and I kind of walked in, and he was like just playing some chill game, and I was like, he was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I was like, "Oh, it's garbage out there." And he's like, "Well, that's out there. You're in here now. Just hang out and vibe." And just in vibing, it was that sort of relaxation and things like that. And I ended up winning a game. Like he was holding a raffle, and I ended up winning a game, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And it was like this cozy little platformer that was a short, like, I think you can beat it in 2 or 3 hours. It's called Thomas Was Alone. And it was just this like moment of relief, and then I would subsequently come back to that stream, and I was like, talking about how like that just made my week better, and I love coming to his streams because of that. And one day he was doing like a creator workshop, and I was like, I really should start a stream going one day. um and he was like, "Yeah, you should." And I was like, "Oh, but this, that." And he goes, "No, just start the stream, pick a vibe, and go for it." Right. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, he made it sound so easy to just like push the live button. And there's immense amount of technical work behind it and stuff like that, but it really is just kind of like that easy. And so like what I wanted to do was I had two goals in mind. I wanted something that was sort of that's where the name like Pillowfort Games came from. Was I wanted a place where whatever was going on in the world, you could just take a set amount of time. You could take an hour, 2 hours, you pop in the stream, right? Hang out and sort of like forget being an adult. Just be a little kid.
Yeah.
I tell everyone, I always keep cookies on the counter and juice boxes in the fridge, right? And I tell everyone to pull up their pillows. And so it was like, it was almost inspired by the line from Cheers, where like sometimes you just want to go where everybody knows your name. Um,
Yeah.
and so like that was kind of what I wanted it to be, is when I stream games, I stream them as though like I'm just hanging out on my couch with a bunch of friends. um
That's such a good mentality to have too,
right, it's
especially in
just I
today's
have a
world.
couch that's big enough to fit 10, 15 people on the same couch. But like that's how I see it, is I'm playing a game and we're all just hanging out and laughing and having a good time. Cloudheim, I think, like, I don't think I planned to be a Cloudheim
Oh,
creator.
me neither, dude.
Um,
Me neither.
but
It just kind of
I do
happened.
think before the early access, I had like 60 hours logged in the demo. I think 20 of it I played a week of the demo, and I just kind of showcased it, and I was like, okay, we're doing this, we're running dungeons, we're discovering loot, we're messing around with, and I was like talking about it, and I was like realizing that I was just having fun, and like I was the most in my zone as a streamer, and like you can tell it from the numbers and stuff. Not that I'm a big numbers guy, but I do look at them to sort of help guide some of my decisions, right? But like you could tell, like playing it back and watching it, and like 20 of those hours that I played on the demo were streamed, and you could see 100%. Like, I'm a PNG tuber, so you couldn't see the spark in my eye, but you could hear it in my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And then the early access came out, and I took, like, it was the first time since I think Horizon Zero Dawn. I took the time off, and like I put in a request off for work, and I was like, hey, I will not be available this weekend. uh I'm doing a thing for me, and I will be putting my phone on do not disturb. And I think I told my store manager, who is the only person at that store that I have like an immense amount of respect, because she's not that I don't respect everyone else, but I do respect her because of she's put in the work hours and stuff like that, and has like shown up at 3 a.m. to bail our store out. I was like, you alone can text me if you need something. I will whitelist you. Please don't need anything.
Please don't need
Because I
anything.
because I knew that if she was going to text me and say, hey, I really need you to cover this shift, that like 27 different things would have had to have gone wrong for her to do that. Like, I knew she wouldn't just gut reaction ask me to come in.
Yeah.
Um so I was like, you alone I will answer the phone for. Everyone else, I'm going to pretend that I don't work here for a weekend. And I needed it. Um and then I proceeded to stream 40 hours of the early access in its early access weekend, and it was kind of like it almost gave us a midnight release party kind of thing.
Oh, I miss
Is
those, man. I miss those
so
so
so what we
much.
did for my stream was I was playing the demo up until the release moment, and I had my chat on one screen, and then I had my phone up right in front of my computer with the like announcement board Discord rolling. And then like I was like playing and vibing, and I was like, yeah, I don't know when it's gonna come out and blah 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 this. And then I see someone on the Discord was like, yo, it's live. And like everyone's like the chat was just blowing, like the Discord chat for Cloudheim was blowing up. It's live, it's live, it's live. And I was like, let's go, guys. I was like, we're gonna take a short 10-minute break. I'm gonna go like install the game, and we're gonna go do all of this again.
And the rest
Because
was
by
history.
that point I was like mastering, Arcadia. And I kind of joke that like Arcadia I spent so much time in with the demo that like I grew up on the streets of Arcadia. Like, you could drop me in, not that it's a big island, right? But you could drop me in somewhere and be like, I need you to get here. And I'd be like, I know where to go. Don't worry.
Right,
Like,
right, yeah. Okay, okay. Well, before I would say, before we run out of time here, this being our first episode, and we have big plans for the show moving forward. I how do you feel about guests, coming on the show and speaking their truths on here?
I will not be shy. I'll shoot my shot. I would love if we could get a dev or two on one of these.
I think that would
Uh,
be awesome. Long shot, but
barring
still a shot.
barring that, because it's a smaller group, and I think we could have a lot of fun with it. The folks in the helpful Runari, like I know that you're one. I've earned that title. I would love to do like a roundtable helpful Runari, um, sort of podcast, and see if we could get some of them convinced. I don't know who all in there uses mics and stuff like that. I think that would be a fun one. Um,
Yeah, I
I don't know if
second
he's
this for sure.
I definitely have a couple of names. I know back in the demo, um, Kusage was real big on presence and stuff like that, and I know that a couple of games he was interested in came out around the same time as Cloudheim. Um, but if he's still around, I think he would be a really fun one, because I think he has the record of playing since like the demo, or since the beta. Um, you know,
Okay, okay.
those are definitely, I think, my top lists.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself, honestly. And I just hope that this reaches those ears that it needs to reach, and we get to see what the future holds for the Cloudcast. Um, I think that's gonna wrap up what we've got here today for you guys. Where can they find you? Where can they find you, Jaden?
I am over at Twitch on Pillow Fort Games. I'm working on branching out some of my other social medias, but Blue Sky and Twitter under the same name. You should be able to find me. Um, I do have a TikTok. It's got a couple of clips on it. It's not growing. But pretty much almost all the social medias, if you search up Pillowfort Games, you'll find me. But I do stream every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in like a 9 a.m. slot on Twitch. So
Okay, cool, cool. And you can find me on YouTube under Bad Snacks or at Snacks is Bad. You can find me on Twitch under the same name. That's Bad Snacks, twitch.tv/Bad Snacks with two S's. And I think that's it for me. I think I only have Twitch and YouTube at the moment. So yeah, if you guys want to see more Cloudcast, let us know in any of the respective channels or what have you. Obviously, you can find us both on the Cloudheim Discord. Feel free to shoot us a DM or just reach out in any way that you find necessary. And we would love to hear from the community. We'd love to hear from you guys. And I think that's gonna do it for us here. Is there anything else you wanna say?
uh nah, I'm good.
All right. We'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.